Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. A recently published book claims that economics determines elections, but does it? Or does Mr. Modi's election campaign suggest otherwise? Here is the book. It's called How We Vote, The Factors That Influence Voters, and its author is the well-regarded and very popular economist and columnist Surjit Bhalla. Dr. Bhalla, in your book, How We Vote, you write, and I'm quoting you, "I have long been a believer in the dictum that economics determines elections." How then do you explain the fact that one of the best practitioners of election campaigns, Mr. Modi, who's won 3 consecutive huge majorities in Gujarat and could be poised to win 3 majorities in Delhi, has spent the last 3 weeks attacking and demonizing the Muslim community in the clear intention of polarizing the mood between Hindus and Muslims and ensuring, therefore, that Hindus vote for him, yet he hasn't said a word in the last 3 weeks about his government's track record economic performance. Clearly, Mr. Modi is belying your dictum.
First, I will address your questions. I want to first give the full quote from where you've taken that one line, and I completely stand by that line, but I think the readers or listeners will appreciate the context. It says, "I've long been a believer in the dictum that economics determines elections, and investment in both physical and human capital investment determines growth and increase in wealth."
Right. Thank you for reading the sentence, Dr. Bhalla. The second half, I should point out to the audience, is not about elections. It's about growth and how investment determines growth. The first half is about elections, and it claims that economics determines elections, which is why I raised the first half.
Yeah. Now, let me address that first half again. You consider that investment in physical and human capital is not economics determine growth and therefore determining elections?
No, I did not say that at all.
No, I'm saying that's what I read. And
that's not what you say that's my conclusion. That's not my conclusion at all.
That's the one sentence I just wanted for the listeners to know. The complete sentence is economics determines elections, and it's an and, not a full stop. And investment in both physical and human capital determines growth and increase in welfare. Let me continue on that. The whole book is about voters vote in elections, not only in India, but elsewhere around the world, on the basis of how they see the challenger policies helping them increase their welfare and how they see the incumbents' policies increasing their welfare. And so that is what there's whole, and right in the beginning of the book, it says a data-led approach to understanding the human voter.
The only problem, Dr. Bhalla, can I just interrupt and point this out? The only problem is that your dictum that economics determines elections is belied by what Mr. Modi has been saying 3 to 4 times a day for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He's focusing not upon the economic performance of his government. He's instead seeking to polarize the atmosphere by demonizing and attacking the Muslim community. His intention is to divide Hindu and Muslim, thus uniting the Hindus behind him and securing a majority in that manner, not through the stressing of his economic record, but by polarizing the mood of the country. Therefore, he's not following your dictum, he's belying it.
No. And what I think of obvious interpretation difference is that you think that a person runs for elections on the basis of 3 weeks of speeches rather than his entire track record of improving the welfare of the people. And if you read any newspaper, including there was just a paper in the Indian Express today about voters in Bihar.
Dr. Bhalla, are you truly saying to me that the Prime Minister is not running for elections on the basis of his speeches over the last 3 weeks? Of course he is. That's what he is voting. That's what he's talking about. That is what he's reminding the audience of.
No, because he doesn't need to remind them that their welfare has increased manifold and at a very rapid rate over the last 5 years and over the last 10 years.
So forgive me.
That's what he's reminding people
Forgive me.
And he has reminded.
I'll tell you why he
last thing I will say.
On his track record, because the CSD poll, which came out just 10 days ago, points out that 62% of the country believe that unemployment is the biggest concern. 71% believe inflation is the biggest concern. His track record in the eyes of that 60 and 70% does not add up to a winning reason for voting to him, which is why the Prime Minister has chosen to polarize, to demonize, and to try and bring Hindus behind him, because he knows that his track record won't deliver. That's why he's doing this.
And just give me those numbers that you said on unemployment and inflation.
Happily, the CSDS Lokniti poll shows that 62% of the country believes unemployment is the biggest concern, while 71% believe that price rise is the biggest concern.
Okay. Now, before I address this very specifically, I would like on campaign speeches, etc., there is this very interesting quote from John Mitchell, who was Attorney General for Nixon back in 1968. And everybody was very fearful of what would happen. And he said to the reporters, watch what we do, not what we say. Now I will come to, which is what I think voters will vote on, his economic record. I'm now going to address the economic record that you have said.
No, I'm not asking you
on
to
unemployment and inflation.
record. We are not, hang on a second. I'm asking you to address something different. Don't deflect my question. My question was, Mr. Modi, according to your dictum, should be fighting the election on the basis of his economic record, yet Mr. Modi is not doing that. Mr. Modi instead is polarizing the atmosphere by turning Hindus against Muslims, by demonizing the Muslims in the belief that it will unite Hindus behind him, and that will give him the majority he wants. So answer my question, not a question that you make up.
On his economic record, you cited two aspects of his economic record in terms of unemployment, not necessarily his economic record, but his economic record, according to you, was unemployment was that people state in surveys that unemployment is very high, and 62% of people say that price rise is a problem.
71% on price rise, 62 on unemployment.
Yeah. So on the price rise, and I did my first survey back, people survey in the mid 80s. And every survey since done by anybody, and I mentioned this in great detail in the book, has stated that price rise is a problem. And every survey stated that unemployment is a problem.
So
I find empirically that price rise is not a problem according to voting behavior, and unemployment is not
Dr.
necessarily.
Bhalla, have you forgotten that 3 state governments in December 1998, all run by the BJP, were voted out of office on the price of onions? Have you forgotten that?
I have not forgotten that. And what you believe, Karan, the reason they have horse races is because people have different views about events,
Where
which
are
is
we
why
going?
there's betting on horse races. You and I happen to you think that election was determined by the price of onions. I believe there were several other factors that have contributed. You look at the growth rate.
Please come back to the question I asked. We can't keep deflecting down every side avenue and side lane that opens up in a conversation. My question was very simple. Your dictum is that economics determines elections. Mr. Modi, if he believed in your dictum, would be fighting on the grounds of his economic performance. Yet for 3 weeks, he's chosen to ignore his economic performance and instead talk about demonizing Muslims, polarizing the country in the hope that he can swing Hindus behind him to get the majority he wants. Please answer the question. He is belying your dictum.
No, and Karan, again, you think I'm not answering your question. I think I'm very much answering your question. So either we can go on and on stating that I am not answering your question, and I give you evidence on performance. I try to give you evidence on performance as to how that matters and his performance over the last 5 years. Now,
let's then come to a second sentence. Let's move away from this dispute over your sentence and whether Mr. Modi is belying your dictum or not. Let's come to a second sentence from your.
No, I have to answer the unemployment and the inflation
question.
question.
That was not a question put to you. That was simply facts in a Loknati survey. I don't want you to answer that because it's not for you to answer. I'm instead going to put you a second sentence from your book. You say Modi's consistent appeal is to a modern India, an aspiring India. That would certainly be the case if over the last 3 weeks, Mr. Modi was talking about jobs, about development, about new opportunities in cities. Not only is he not doing that, he's not even talking about Viksit Bharat and Achhe Din. Instead, he's talking about how Muslims are likely to grab reservations and take them away from OBCs, SCs, and STs. So he's not appealing to a modern India. He's appealing to the fear and prejudice of India. Not a modern India, but to the fears and prejudice of Hindus who are being whipped up into believing by Mr. Modi that their reservations will be grabbed by Muslims.
Look, again, you're rephrasing, and please allow me to rephrase. Just like horse races, we have different views and interpretation of the same fact. You had cited unemployment and inflation, a Lokniti survey, as a major determinant, or as suggesting that the people were very concerned. But Karan, let me finish here.
I haven't said a word.
Yeah, people were very concerned about inflation and unemployment. I gave you evidence from surveys throughout history, which always, whether the inflation was high or low, always consider price rise to be a problem. Now I'll give you actual data on inflation and unemployment.
Dr. Bhalla, that was an illustration of the fact that Mr. Modi is not talking about the economic issues that matter. I was actually saying to you that this conversation is about inflation and unemployment. You're diverting the subject. Please come back to the issue. The issue now is your claim, and I'm quoting from page 18 of your book, that Modi's consistent appeal is to a modern India, an aspiring India. And I'm saying he's not appealing to modern India. He's appealing to the prejudices of India by whipping up concerns about Muslims who he claims will be grabbing reservations meant for OBCs, SCs, and STs at the cost of those people. He's therefore whipping up prejudice, and he's whipping up communalization and communal feelings.
First, on the economic record again, on inflation, it turns out that inflation during the last 5 years and the last 10 years have been one of the lowest on record for a 10-year period. If you recall, the previous 2004 to 2000.
Are you unable to answer my question that you keep?
Are you going to let me answer, or you're going to continue?
But you're answering a question I haven't asked. I didn't ask a question about inflation or unemployment. You asked me to give
Yes,
you
no,
details, which I
Karan.
did. Now you're converting a question out of
Karan,
it and answering it.
Let's be honest. It was you who brought up the Lokniti survey as stating that the concern of the people was inflation and
Yes.
unemployment. I'm trying to
I
give
brought it up as
obvious
an
data.
illustration that Mr. Modi is not addressing the economic concerns that matter. Instead, he's polarizing the atmosphere. It was an illustration of that. I wasn't actually seeking to discuss unemployment and inflation as you are now trying to do. And I am accusing
You
you
brought
of
it up.
deliberately not answering my question because
brought
the
it up.
problem is my
No,
question
Karan,
shows that
Karan,
you're a victim
you brought
or
it
you
up.
claim that
No,
Modi is
if there's
appealing to
one
modern India is not
takeaway,
true.
if there's one takeaway from the conversation we've had, you look at the world differently and data differently. And I look at the world differently and data differently. Now, this is very common. People look at the world differently. But when they look at the world differently, then they let the other person speak.
Mr. Bhalla,
Rather
let's
than keep
back-
repeating,
let me come
Mr.
back to what
Thapar,
you wrote. Let me come
Mr.
back to
Thapar.
what you wrote because your sentence is what I want to talk about. I'll repeat it for the sake of the audience.
No.
Modi's consistent appeal is to a modern India, an aspiring India. I point out to you that when he whips up emotions about Muslims
I know.
seeking reservations, he's not appealing to a modern India, he's appealing to a prejudiced India. And the dark side of that prejudice is that it looks for reasons to hate Muslims, and Mr. Modi is manufacturing them day by day to feed that dark side. It's not a modern India or an aspirational India he's appealing to. He's appealing to prejudice. He's appealing to communal discord.
Again, you had not fully quoted the sentence where you said about elections and forgot about the rest. We went through that. Now, for the listeners, you keep repeating the sentence, Modi's consistent appeal is to a modern India and aspiring India.
I'll hold up the page.
Yes, yes.
And that is a standalone sentence. There is no second part to it. So
there is
I'm not
an India that wants the same power, an India that wants to benefit the poor.
That is the next sentence.
Okay. Nahi hoga yaar.
It's the next sentence. You can't conflate the two.
So, look, you define your terms, Karan. It's very unfair. I am giving the context to the reader or to the listener, and you refuse to let me give the context.
No, go right ahead and give as much context as you want, but don't claim that I have abbreviated or only read half the
sentence. Not abbreviated. It's the sentence. You pointed out the page, and you've got that line underlined, not the rest of it.
No, that is the sentence on its own. The rest of it is another sentence.
Oh, so now a person writes a book, and there are two sentences, one a half sentence that you pick up, and one a sentence in a paragraph without context that you pick up, and you want me to do an interview with you? No.
Hang on a second. Let me read the second sentence.
An
India
Karan,
that wants to benefit the poor via redistribution on the basis of income, not on the basis of birth records. Today, Mr. Modi is campaigning against redistribution on the basis of income. He has spent his entire time accusing Congress of stealing people's income and giving it away, even to the point of saying, if you have two buffaloes, Congress will take one. So this sentence, an India that wants to benefit the poor via redistribution on the basis of income, not on the basis of birth records, is actually something Mr. Modi is campaigning against at the moment.
I am trying to tell you what the sentence is. And the point is that the whole book talks, there's a chapter called Redistribution with Growth, in which I document how, for the very first time, India has observed a decline in inequality. And this is not only for the first time in India, but from the various analysis done of all the countries in the world, this is a very unique performance.
Okay.
That income inequality or consumption inequality, to be precise, has declined in India, which is the very essence of redistribution of income, and which is the very reason, mind you, mind you, So first,
Mr.
this is
Bhalla, we've gone way off what we were talking about, but you have the right to deflect.
no,
I
you
can
want to
answer.
talk about what you want to talk about. I want to talk about these two issues, and the twain shall not meet.
Let me come to a
No, Karan, यार आधा घंटा हो गया है.
let
आधा
me
घंटा.
come to a second, a
40
third
मिनट
issue.
40 मिनट हो गए.
Let me come to a third issue that you raised in
No,
your book
no,
about the Prime Minister. You say, and I'm quoting you,
I don't know what
I have
have-
no doubt that Modi and the BJP will get credit for giving birth to a newer, truer secularism from many voters. Let me ask you your own personal opinion, not the opinion of many voters, your personal opinion. Do you really believe that Modi has introduced a newer, truer secularism?
Look, Karan, each of those things, I come up with answers, and you just
Please
throw-
answer this.
I
I am very keen to hear your answer. Do you really believe Modi
I
has
will give you your
a newer, truer secularism?
You don't let me answer the previous questions. You come to a new question. Now you want my personal opinion rather than what is in the book.
But hang on a second. In the book, you say from many voters, which is why I'm saying
Yes.
many voters may believe that Mr. Modi has come up with a newer, truer secularism. I'll
Yes.
just point out that many voters is not most voters, but I want to know whether the author, you yourself, believes that Modi has come up with a newer, truer secularism. What is your personal opinion?
My personal opinion, I try to give my reading of the data. You don't let me speak. You don't let me finish. And now you want to come to my personal opinion for use what you would put to, I do not know.
But you'll hear what you say, put it to as soon as you answer the question.
Yeah. I'm saying what I said again. First, in terms of a modern India and a secular India, that their biggest story in the book is about economics, welfare. And that is very much, if you don't have growth, and if large sections of the population are not benefiting from growth, I don't know how you can achieve a modern India. Second,
what about newer, truer secularism? Do you believe Mr. Modi has introduced a newer, truer secularism?
Yes, I do, but it doesn't matter.
No, hang on.
What I believe.
You're saying you do believe he's introduced a newer, truer secularism.
Yes, it's a different version or not a different interpretation of secularism, which means that there is less appeasement and more redistribution. Secularism has to do with people uniting together in economic progress. I'll give you one last.
No, just a moment. I just want you to confirm I've heard you correctly. You do believe Mr. Modi has introduced a newer, truer secularism. You do believe that?
I do believe that Modi's consistent appeal is to a modern India and aspiring India, an India that wants to benefit the poor via distribution on the basis of income, not on the basis of birth records.
What about newer, truer secularism? Those are the words
I do believe that second thing I believe is the dictum that economics determines elections, and investment in both physical and human capital determines growth and increase in welfare.
And what
people
about
go to the
giving
voting
birth
booth.
to a newer, truer secularism? Do you personally believe Mr. Modi?
What will you cut out and what will you put in?
But answer me a question and you'll find out what I'm going to ask.
Because you don't let me finish.
No. Just answer. Do you believe Mr. Modi?
Just answer. Do you let me finish? We can have a private conversation.
If you answer the question.
I'm happy to have a private conversation where we can have all the arguments, etc. But this, I'm trying to present what my case, which is there in the book of my analysis of the data, and you're not even letting me address that unemployment today is the lowest.
No, I'm not talking about unemployment. I'm asking you.
I am talking about unemployment. That has to do with economic welfare.
I'm asking the question, and I've asked you a different question. Please hear it again. You write, and I'm quoting you. I have no doubt that Modi and the BJP will get credit for giving birth to a newer, truer secularism from many voters. And I'm saying many voters give Modi credit for that. Do you give him credit for introducing a newer, truer secularism? Yes or no?
No. Why should I answer your yes and no when you don't even allow me to answer the other questions of whether employment has gone up or gone down,
Because we've
unemployment has
moved
gone up or
on.
gone down.
We've moved on. We can't carry on with
No,
quarrels that happened
you
over
did-
questions 2, 6,
No,
4, and 5.
Karan Thapar is done because Karan Thapar believes he is done because he will have his views and not allow the other person's views.
But I am inviting and asking for your views. Do you
Yes,
believe
and
Modi
so
has introduced
far,
a newer, truer
so far,
secularism? Please tell me.
you have invited me for my views, and when I try and document that economic welfare is the most important aspect of voting behavior, indeed, the last line of my book.
So, Dr. Bhalla, we've
Beginning of
moved
part
on.
two,
Unless you
is
don't
the
want to
economy
answer this
stupid.
question because it embarrasses you, we've moved on. The
No,
question is a
no,
different one.
no, Karan.
All right.
You
I don't
don't
think we're
let
going to
me
get very
answer
far. Let's
any
end
question.
this interview there. I attempted very hard to ask you a simple question. Do you believe, as you've written in your book, that Modi has given birth to a newer, truer secularism? And you will not answer that question. You did en passant twice say yes, but when I asked you to be clear and precise, you backed off. So all I can assume is...
No, Karan, you believed I backed off, and precisely when I try to answer your other two questions, you'd also dismiss them. You don't accept them, that I have a different interpretation of the economic record, as in particular of voting behavior.
Okay.
So how am I going to answer a personal question when you don't even accept my answers to an objective question, which are provided in an objective manner?
I will end the interview by saying that the question I wanted to ask, which you have declined to answer, is the following.
I have not declined to answer any question, but
You
if you
just
go
have.
to
You just have.
what I've consistently stated, you don't let the person speak. And I have also stated that I looked at your interview with Raghuram Rajan and you never interrupted him once.
It was a question.
And you asked him several.
You
asked him
that you are
several.
reluctant.
You asked him several
Let's leave
questions.
it there, Dr. Bhalla.
You asked him
There's no
several
point quarreling.
questions. You asked him several questions.
You do not
You
wish
asked
to
him
tell me.
several questions.
You
Several
clearly
questions.
decided you do not wish to tell me whether you accept that Modi has given birth to a newer, truer secularism. You say many voters will give him credit for that. I'm asking if you, the author, give him credit for that, and you will not tell me.
No, I will. Yes, I do give him credit for that.
For introducing a newer, truer secularism.
Yes. A
In which case,
secularism.
can I ask you this?
No,
In
you
which case,
can't
can I
ask
ask you
me.
this?
First, I've answered your question.
Yes, but can I ask you a
When I
follow-up?
try and answer the question, any previous question, you don't let me finish.
Let me ask you a follow-up question.
No,
The truth is,
not going to work.
but let me have a second. The
No,
truth is,
not going to work.
we have perhaps the most
Either we start again.
Muslim government in
Either we start again with the rules of the
I'm
game
not
clearly
starting again. I
defined.
want to ask you.
Either we start again, okay, and you let a person finish his argument, then you can come up with this. Any person looking at this,
Dr. Bhalla, we can't
90% of
keep
the
going
time,
back to
I've
the
spoken
first
10% of
question,
the time.
even if you're unhappy with the answers you gave me.
No, I'm not.
Move on. We can't
I'm
keep
very
dancing
unhappy with the way
head
you're
of a
conducting
pin.
the interview.
All right, let's
Okay.
leave the interview there. We attempted to discuss your book. We haven't been very successful. We've quarreled probably most of the time. I thank you for making time for me. I thank you for agreeing to the interview, even if we haven't made appreciable progress. Take care. Stay safe.
Very unfair. So I don't know what you'll broadcast, but whatever you broadcast.
Let me tell you, everything as recorded will be broadcast without any editing. We never, ever edit our interviews.
Yeah. And you will have, so the people will be able to see.
What I will point out,
try to answer
I'm doing
the
it while you're hearing me, is that after having confirmed that you personally believe that Modi has given birth to a newer, truer secularism, you would not
wrote it.
ask
Obviously, I believe.
follow-up questions. You would not let me ask you follow-up questions. I'm reiterating that, and this too will be on air.
If you broadcast the whole interview, people will see.
Okay.
That you don't let me
Dr.
answer
Bhalla,
the question.
thank you very much for making time for me. Take care. Stay safe.
And the whole interview, including that, basically what Raghuram Rajan, how you treated him and others, right?
Absolutely. Every single word that you've said, including
every word that you said,
which was critical of Karan, will be broadcast right up to this point. And I include in that the fact that you would not let me ask follow-up questions when you confirmed that you believe Modi has given birth to a newer, truer secularism. I'm
But I
also
did
going
answer,
to add
yeah.
that in. You would not let me ask follow-up questions.
So follow up.
Can I ask the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. The truth is, we have never had a more anti-Muslim government than the present one. MPs call Muslims Babar ki aulad. The Chief Minister of UP taunts them with abba, jaan. They are repeatedly told by MPs and MLAs of the BJP to go to Pakistan. Ministers and MPs accuse them of love jihad, land jihad, and cattle lynching. And even in 2021 December, when a dharma sansad publicly called for genocide, the government kept quiet. How on earth can you call that newer, truer secularism?
A truer, newer, truer secularism has to do with equal recognition of all communities. India is a very diverse nation, and one of its major assets is the diversity. And there is a consistent record of the previous administrations going and not treating everybody. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said that the minorities were a major concern, and they have a first recourse to the assets of the country, especially the Muslims. Now, that suggests that the first part is absolutely correct, but especially the Muslims is a little bit not quite secular. Second, what India did, and this is an important part, at independence, we were broken up on religious grounds. And the first 20, 30 years was the policies were geared towards making sure that the Muslims felt comfortable in India, and therefore there was a secularism which meant that the community, the nation, bent over and did special privileges to the Muslims, because we were very concerned, as we should have been, about a secular India where all communities are equal. After that, so that has continued, and that special favor has continued post the Reconstruction period of the first 30 years or so.
Can I, with your permission,
now come
make a point?
If you are going to be a modern India, time has come to recognize the flaws in our policies as well as the real constructive attributes
I think,
of our policy
Dr. Bhalla,
of helping
I understand
everyone.
what you're saying. Can I make a point?
And
What you're saying
no,
is that
I will finish this. I will finish this sentence. We then have that there have been various policies that the government has introduced, that Mr. Modi has introduced, whether it is on toilets, whether it is on redistribution of food grains, whether it is on construction of houses, and there's nobody.
I think I've heard that.
That the Muslims
Permit
are
me
benefiting
a chance to come back.
Nobody has said
Permit
that
me a
Muslims
chance
are
to
not
come back.
benefiting equally.
Permit me now a chance to come back. You're saying, no, Dr. Bhalla, at some point you must permit me a chance to come back.
Second. I also document in the paper, in the book, as to how India has performed, the private sector has performed, and there's this
Dr.
entire
Bhalla,
discussion.
we were talking
on
about
wages.
something quite
There's this
different, not
entire
everything in your
discussion
book.
on, there's this entire discussion.
Dr. Bhalla.
There was this entire discussion on wages.
Dr.
And
Bhalla, I'm
Muslim
sorry,
wages
I'm going to
versus
interrupt now
Hindu
forcefully
wages,
because
how
you are
Muslim wages
deliberately
versus Hindu
prevaricating and
wages
deflecting.
have
You are
moved.
deliberately.
And there's this entire discussion there about how Muslims in the marketplace do not obtain a lower wage.
I was asking you a question about your belief that Modi has introduced a newer, truer secularism by pointing out to you the way Muslims are referred to, what they are accused of, and how the government is silent even when there are calls for the genocide. Are you saying to me, forgive me, you now must let me finish. Are you saying to me, whatever the discrepancies and errors and mistakes in the way secularism was practiced before Modi came to power, it justifies and excuses calling Muslims Babar ki aulad? It justifies and excuses the Chief Minister of UP haunting them with abba, jaan, repeatedly telling them to go to Pakistan, that ministers can accuse Muslims without even thinking of love jihad, land jihad, and cattle lynching? Are you saying to me that when there are calls at a dharma sansad for genocide, silence from the government is therefore explicable and understandable? That is what you call secularism?
What I call secularism are the benefits of progress equally benefiting all communities? And the record is, it is.
That's a very interesting
and-
interpretation of secularism.
and-
You therefore trample upon
let me-
people's faiths, but provided you give them toilets and gas, it doesn't matter if you denigrate their faith publicly and condemn them because they happen to be of a different faith. That's
And-
your secularism, it seems.
And the recent articles have shown and interviews, because this is election season, that in Bihar and in UP, the people are saying, and in UP, Muslim women were interviewed in an article published in print, where as to how they feel about the Modi government, Muslim women, and they say that things have really improved in terms of law and order. They can go out at night, etc. And then when it was asked, okay, who are you going to vote for? They said that, look, our elders will not want us to vote for the BJP.
All right.
But these women, so therefore, there's that record.
All right,
one
Dr.
other
Bhalla,
record.
I thank you for making time for me. I don't think my purpose is served by your deliberately choosing to answer different questions to the one I asked and to go on to territory that was not at all intended or covered by my question. But that's your prerogative. You have a right to deflect. You have a right to
No, I'm going to answer.
But I think in the interest of the audience, we need to bring this interview to an end. They've been very patient.
Now that I'm answering.
Can't tax their patience further.
No, now that I'm answering, you want the interview to end.
No, you're not answering, you're deliberately deflecting. You're going on every subject
what I wanted to bring out
under the
in terms of
a
secular India,
by secularism.
What I wanted to bring out, a newer secular India, was in terms of the
why don't you address the fact that he and his people refer to Muslims as Babar ki aulad? Is that secularism? That the chief minister of UP taunts them and calls them abba, jaan? That BJP MPs and MLAs keep telling Muslims to go to Pakistan? Why don't you address that? Is that secularism? Tell me, is it?
Yes,
it's secularism.
Let me answer.
Go on, answer.
Okay. As I said before, people look at what the government does. Voters look at, Muslim voters, Hindu voters, all voters look at what the government does, not what it necessarily says. That is why.
Oh, come on, Dr. Bhalla.
That is why.
If it wasn't serious, it would be comic.
What did he say, sorry?
I said, if it wasn't serious, it would be comic. That Muslims disregard what the government says and only look at what the government does. That they're quite happy for the government to call them Babar ki aulad, taunt them with abba, jaan, repeatedly tell them to go to Pakistan, accuse them of cattle lynching, land lynching, and love jihad. I'm sorry, you have to be living in a world of make-believe if you really believe this doesn't matter to Muslims.
I didn't say it matters or does not matter. It probably matters. At the same time, what I'm emphasizing, I think what matters more to all of them is how the economic welfare has improved.
Okay.
That is the calculation. That is the calculation. Let me finish out.
I'm sorry, we've borrowed
every voter makes.
Your opinion has been put across clearly. People have understood where you come from and what you're saying. I thank you for making time for me. I thank you for agreeing to this interview. Take care. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.